and welcome to another edition of the African Transformation Spotlight, brought to you by the African Center for Economic Transformation. We're an African-led, African-driven economic policy think tank, headquartered in Ghana, with a focus on the entire African continent and connected to the world. My name is Sharmaine Oddoye, Knowledge Manager here at ACET, and today I am joined by Freda Yawson, who's our Senior Manager, primarily in charge of leading the G20 Compact with Africa initiative here at ACET. Freda has over 16 years of combined experience in engineering, international development, management consulting, and project and portfolio management. Here at ACET, her main focus is leading on the CWA initiative, which aims to help African countries seize their potential for sustained and inclusive economic growth. This is done by bringing together governments and their international partners to implement measures that increase private and infrastructure investment in Africa. So join us today as we discuss the impact of the CWA initiative so far, and then also why peer learning is such an important tool for boosting private investment and also increasing the provision of infrastructure in Africa. Welcome to the Spotlight, Freda.
Thank you, Sharmaine. It's a pleasure to be here.
So Freda, you have been instrumental in managing the CWA so far. So can you share some specific examples or outcomes that highlight, this initiative and how it has fostered sustainable and inclusive economic transformation in participating countries?
Sure. So thanks, Sharmaine. So I think maybe before I go into that, I will just give a little bit of background of the program, how we got here and what we are trying to achieve. So as you said, the Compact with Africa, CWA, is an initiative between G20 countries and 13 reform-minded African countries. CWA was initiated in 2017 as part of the German G20 presidency under the G20 finance track. And the objective of the whole idea was that reform-minded African countries would work with G20 countries by addressing three key areas that would stimulate investment. The first being their macroeconomic stability, secondly, their business frameworks, and thirdly, their financing frameworks. And the idea is if these three areas are addressed, this would create an enabling environment that would make it easy for investment to flow into their countries. And so this is how CWA got started. And it has been 7 years since. ACET, in its role as one of the partners for CWA, works with multilaterals such as the World Bank, IMF, AFDB, ISC, and it really plays an interesting role as an independent monitor that is coming with an African perspective. And so our first is that we develop peer reviews every year. So we've done 10 peer reviews so far on specific issues, on the status of countries, how they're doing, and their independent perspective. Secondly, we support with peer-to-peer learning. ACET being a think tank provides research, policy advice, and convenes countries along with key partners on specific issues that they of interest. Thirdly, we support investment promotion efforts by again convening, providing events. Recently, we've created an investment promotion working group where countries can deep dive and share what they're doing in their investment promotion activities. And fourthly, we advocate for countries. And we've done so on various platforms like the T20, which is the think tank version of the G20, providing various research. And so all of these things combined really supporting ACET's vision of economic transformation. We're doing the research, we're providing the advice, we're doing the advocacy, and it's really a great platform to bring African countries together towards some of these common goals, especially infrastructure.
Thank you so much, Freda. This actually brings me to my next question, which is on ACET's role as a facilitator in this initiative. So particularly through peer reviews and policy advocacy, How does this program fit within ACET's, broader strategy? And how are we actually able to evaluate, ACET's contribution to the initiative's success?
Yeah. This is a tough one in context, but there are a few things that we can sort of hone in on. So, as we mentioned before, ACET's core mandate is research, advisory, and advocacy, right? And in terms of research, our peer learning events are backed by research. So, give you an example. In a few months, we're going to be doing a peer learning event on climate policy and climate finance. We have done background research to understand what are the key challenges, where countries are, provide recommendations even before we go into that peer learning event. And as part of these events, we convene a broad range of stakeholders. So we're not just talking to governments and ministries of finance, we're bringing in private sector, and we're bringing in, where possible, civil society, so that we have sort of an engaging conversation. To date, we have facilitated over 20 peer learning events on topics like domestic resource mobilization, blended finance, public-private partnerships, and this has generated over 32 knowledge products. And I'm really happy to say that these events have an 84% satisfaction rating from
Amazing.
Amazing. We're doing it without.
Exactly.
Yes.
Great. So that actually, networking is very important and crucial for this initiative. Bringing together the government, the bilateral institutions, private sector, all of that. So could you describe maybe a successful example of how, networking has led to some tangible investments or improvements within the infrastructure, especially since, networking and engaging on a high level is a key component of this initiative?
Absolutely. So one example that I can think of is, and that countries keep telling us about, was an investment forum that we held in 2019, basically as a side event of the African Investment Forum, which is held by the AFDB. And so in that forum, companies, a private sector, was able to engage with government in various deal rooms, right? We know a lot of deals were made, but one particular tangible one that we can trace to G20 is the government of Cote d'Ivoire has recently set up a solar powered plant called the Bundiali solar power plant that recently came online in 2023. Now, this provides electricity to over 150,000 people. And this is a direct result of engagement with, of course, the German government. We know similar has happened in Ghana. Attribution, I must say, is difficult. But, we have understood from our government counterparts that it even led to them being able to join the African, trade insurance program, which was in itself not financing, but allowed them to access more financing and de-risk and guarantee some of the projects that they didn't want to. So there are these linkages, and we're continuing to try to build this ACET story. But I think overall we see that these linkages are existing in some countries, and we have to do a better job in the countries where, some of this still needs to happen.
A bit more work, yes. Freda, you have your hands full. And as a woman in such a significant Pan-African initiative leading on all these aspects of the initiative, what unique perspectives do you bring to ACET? And then also, why do you believe that it's important for women to, be a part or lead in such initiatives which are actually helping in shaping economic transformation in Africa?
Yeah, that's a great question. Just trying to reflect, women, God made us special. We're special. But to be honest, I think that we break a multifaceted perspective to projects and programs just by nature of the things that we do, right? We are mothers, we are wives, we're businesswomen. We are used to looking at things from different angles. And as a student of international development, I believe also in soft power, right? We are able to navigate complex challenges sometimes with diplomacy, not everyone, but in a way that sometimes our brothers cannot do, right? So, for instance, as we navigate CWA, right, I've realized that many of our countries are still held back by our colonial past and the relationships that we have with those countries. And in order for African countries to also advance while maintaining some of those relationships, we need to do a better job of working with each other. And so as we are delivering peer learning, we're also looking for opportunities in which we can bring countries together to look at regional collaboration, to think about things like AFCTA, to get foreign direct investment from G20, but also to look at regional collaboration, to look at domestic resource mobilization. And we can't get 54 countries to work together if those relationships aren't built. So at the core of that is relationship building, right? And so I think that's something uniquely, maybe not just to women, but is in my skill set. That I can bring to the table to help these countries get to know each other, build relationships, and then sort of move forward with areas in which we can utilize our economies of scale as African countries. So no offense to the G20, but we have some work on the African front to do as well, right, to work together. And so.
Excellent. Freda, I think we've had a great conversation. We've talked about peer learning, we've talked about networking and how it's important for this initiative that you're leading. So thank you so much for joining us in the African Transformation Spotlight. And thank you to our audiences for tuning in. We will see you on the next edition.